Hi, everyone. It seems like we just started the semester and it's already time to start talking about the end of the semester. So today we're going to talk about test taking. Many of you will likely have some kind of exam in your classes. Some of those exams may be on campus if you have labs. It could be that the exams will be online on Blackboard. So we're going to talk just about some basic strategies on how to make sure that you are the best test taker that you can possibly be. So remember, you're reading chapter 6 of our college success book, and watch this video and see if you pick up any tips. So I'm going to share the screen and walk you through a PowerPoint. This will be posted on Blackboard. So let's do it as a show. All right, so test taking can't happen unless you have set the foundation for some study skills, some study strategies. So a few of these slides will address that. So the mission of any kind of test taking is actually to start preparing and studying the first day of class. Everything that you learn from day one is part of the whole semester and is part of possibly a final exam. So you really should understand the syllabus, the course expectations. Along the way, creating a study schedule. If you'll recall, I had you make a time management sheet. And within that time management sheet, you should have identified somewhere between 20 and 30 hours of homework time, depending on the number of classes that you're in. You want to make sure that you understand that memorization is different from comprehending. So do you own the information, or are you renting it, temporarily memorizing it just to get through the exam? That is really not the way to go. Are you reading and marking your texts? Are you making notes and reviewing those after each class session? When you are studying, are you sitting in a chair, good lighting, no distractions? Because test taking is all about those things. When you're taking an exam, you should be in a quiet place. You should be sitting at a chair and a table. I know it's harder or easier to sit on the couch when you're taking an exam on Blackboard, but make sure that you are matching the test conditions. So there are 9 wonders of academic success. First, I made this word up, moditude. A positive attitude and motivation will take you a long way. Do you have adequate resources? So in other words, are you utilizing your textbooks? So I know many of you are using YouTube videos. Your time management, do you know where your time is going? Critical thinking is probably the most important thing for a healthcare provider, and you should be working towards utilizing critical thinking skills at all times for all assignments. Reading strategies. Do you have a way in which you approach reading? Are you comprehending what you're reading? If not, we need to talk about some strategies to help you. How about your notes? Are they all over the place, or do you have a nice organized system that you can easily review? What about your comprehension? That goes along a lot with the reading strategies and the critical thinking. Does it take you a long time to learn information? If so, it really may mean that you just don't have good techniques in studying. Are your math skills strong? For many of you who are going to need dosage calculations, math is important. Are you someone who has stress relief strategies? I know a lot of students don't pay attention to the stress they take on, but you really should. And practice. Stress relief isn't going to come overnight, so it's something you have to work at. So I've talked about comprehension. Comprehension is ownership. It means that you understand the information and that that information is yours. You can use that information 2 years from now if you have truly learned the material. If you're trying to just memorize, that oftentimes means you're just trying to memorize for the moment. When do I need this information? I'm probably not going to remember this information later on. Not a good strategy for healthcare students, because everything you're learning now is ultimately going to come back when you are in your healthcare program. So you're going to be trying to remember, oh, what did I learn in Bio 113? We talked about that. You need to know that Bio 113 content when you are in your health program. And resources and study aids, I know sometimes it takes a lot of time to read materials, to go searching for materials, but you will be so glad that you did that in order to pull information together so that you take some ownership of your own learning. I like to say that students are co-professors. You should not just rely on what the faculty member is putting out there, but you should really be searching for information on your own as well. So your important resources do include your faculty. Are you asking your professors follow-up questions for things you don't understand? How about tutoring? I know it takes a little bit of time to utilize tutors, but you are doing yourself a big favor to invest in some tutoring. Repeating a course, let's say in the spring semester, that's another 14 weeks. Do you really want to spend 14 weeks this fall and 14 weeks next spring on the same course? So invest some time now. Study groups are a little more challenging given that we are in this remote situation, but it is possible to get together and do either, chat groups. Even with Zoom, you can do, I think, about 40 minutes of Zoom sessions without paying. So those could be free. So even if you had a group of 3 people and each of you scheduled a Zoom meeting for 40 minutes each, that's 2 hours. So that's a good amount of time to be able to get together. And I know the library staff are not available up close and personal, but they are responding, by Zoom and other forms of communication like email. And anyone who lives in your house can be a valuable resource. One of the things I'm going to talk about and want to mention is that if you teach the information you are learning, you will retain 90% more information. And that's proven to be true, more so than if you read the information, listen to the information, or write the information. Teaching will help you own the information. Okay, so I've talked a lot about, making sure to do readings. How many of you are using flashcards? Those are really valuable for science classes. Outlines, charts and graphs, those are all the kinds of things that help you stay organized and help you look at the information in an organized manner. I encourage students, test yourself. So if your textbook has questions at the end of the chapters, use those as practice tests. You can also find practice tests online. Set yourself up in a situation where you practice the test taking. It's something that students don't do. And it's one of those skills that you will find helpful when you are actually in the test itself. Mnemonic devices. Some students like to be a little creative and create little rhymes, word problems, stories, acronyms, that help them remember concepts. So you want to make sure, again, this goes back to time management, create a specific plan of action. So when you sit down to study, determine what it is you are going to accomplish in that period of time. So I'm not going to read is different than I'm going to read specifically chapter 1 and 2. I'm going to write out some questions. I'll take a little bit of a break, and then I'm going to come back at it for another hour or so. Make a specific plan. And again, I refer you back to the time management worksheets we did at the beginning of the semester. Your time, you should know where your time is going and whether or not you are using your time well. So at least a week before the exam, make sure you know what the exam is going to be about. So clarify that information with the professor. I'll give you a little advice. Sometimes students complain that professors have given a study guide. Then when it comes time to take the exam, none of the study guide information is on the exam. So really, you need to be prepared for all of the material that was covered in the course. Don't rely on the study guide as the actual exam questions, because that is unlikely to be the case. Study all the material, make sure you're prepared. Review all of your study aids. So your notes, any highlights that you made in the textbook, flashcards. This is the time to review, not to learn new stuff. You should have been learning the whole time. So you don't want to start trying to absorb new information at the last minute. Unless, of course, your professor has introduced some new topics to you leading up to the exam. Thinking positively goes a lot further than thinking negatively. So if your mindset is, I'm going to fail this exam, that could be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you might fail the exam. So that has never helped anyone to think negatively about it. Give yourself credit that you do know some stuff. Think about what preparation you've made. Think about what you do know. Make sure you have some study plans going into this study session for your exam the week before. Take breaks. The brain is really only designed to absorb 50 minutes worth of information at a time. So try not to go for 3 hours straight on studying. Get out there and build that snowman or snow person. Practice some meditation and some relaxation. So that means, going out and building that snow person. Maybe going for a walk. If you've got pets, spend just a few minutes with them. Don't study any other course information, though, at that particular time when you're on your break. And then be realistic about the amount of time that you need for a particular study session. Oftentimes we think, I can read this chapter in, a half an hour. Well, maybe you can. So you need to be realistic about how fast of a reader you are. Don't rush. If you're rushing your assignments and the studying, you're really not engaged in true academic learning. You're tackling the project just to get it done. What's important to know is that the process is just as important as the end product. So make sure you are working with strategies and procedures rather than let me just get this done. The end result on let me just get this done tends to not be good quality work. If you are not a healthy eater, a week before the exam is a really good time to start, eating more fruits and vegetables. And it's also a good time to start sleeping. If you're not someone who gets adequate sleep. You do at least want a couple of days before an exam to try to sleep better. These two things alone will help clear your brain, make you more clear-headed and better able to recall information and to critically think. Big no-no, and I'm the first one to say, I was not a good student. So you do not want to cram the night before an exam. Really and truly, the night before, you should only be reviewing. You should not be at this point trying to learn new information or read material for the first time. A lot of what you want to do the night before an exam is try to relax and do the healthy things to relax. You will find yourself, again, more clear-headed when you go into the actual exam. So on exam day, if you're on campus, you want to make sure you have all the things that you need for it. You want to get there early. So arriving at the last minute, huffing and puffing does nothing but raise your blood pressure. It creates what they call white coat syndrome. Very similar to when you go to the doctor, you don't know if something's wrong with you, so the blood pressure gets a little bit high. So if you're physically on campus, arrive early, sit down, take some time to just kind of decompress. If you are anxious, try some fake smiling. I went to a workshop once where, they talked about genuine laughter, genuine smiling, but they also talked about the fact that fake laughter and fake smiling have very similar effects. And so if that can help put you in a more positive mood, why not try it? Again, if you are on campus and you've been handed a paper exam, don't touch it until the instructor has stopped talking. Make sure that you understand if the instructor is giving out last minute directions, that you have heard those. I took an exam once in a class. Many of us jumped in, didn't listen to the instructor, and all of us got one question wrong because the instructor corrected some of the wording in the exam, but none of us was listening to pay attention to that. So you do want to make sure you don't do anything until the instructor has given all of the directions. It's a good idea to, I'm going to jump to number 3, read the instructions. Follow the directions, read it word for word. Oftentimes, students will come to me and say, yeah, I missed 2 or I missed 3 because I didn't see the last part that I was supposed to do. So you want to make sure that you are reading the instructions word for word. Skim the entire exam. Look at the sections, the types of questions, the point values. Those give you an idea of if you can start in the middle, perhaps, maybe that's where you should start with the exam. However, one of the things that's important is that when you read through the whole exam, you can see if there are any connections between the questions. Sometimes the question on page 3 relates back to the question on page 1. And so there might be some hints and clues in the exam to help you with other questions. So same thing with the directions, read the questions carefully. Answer questions you know first. So that way, if time runs out, you've at least answered the things that you know you can get right. If it's a paper exam, maybe make a little check mark so you know that you need to go back to a certain question. Try to answer every question. You only want to change answers when you have a rationale for doing so. If you're running off of gut or you're trying to recall, oh, I remember seeing that vocabulary word on that page, what did it say? That's not a good reason to change an answer. Double check your work. Don't pay any attention to other students. And this is true if obviously if you're in a classroom. Just because a student gets up and hands in a paper within 15 minutes does not mean that that student necessarily did a good job. That could mean the student turned in a blank paper. So you don't need to compare your pace with anyone else in the class. And even during the exam, practice relaxation and deep breathing. Take a minute to just sit back and allow yourself to clear your head a little bit. All right, so different kinds of questions may call for different types of strategies. So if you are doing matching, you want to pay attention to the columns. Usually there are two. Are there equal numbers of items in each column? Sometimes not. One column could have a list of 1 through 5, and the second column could have A through G. So there's an unequal number of possible answers or matches. So you need to know, I'm going to have to eliminate a few. Match what you know first, and then cross out things that you already know that you've used. So process of elimination, that's really what you're going for. And then are there logical clues? Again, sometimes within an exam, there are clues to the answers. So if you've already looked at the exam, you might find or see, hey, that's the same answer on number 14 that I can use for number 3. True, false. So you're looking for key words here. Double negatives are tricky. So if you see not dishonest, that's probably going to be false. So not dishonest means what? Honest. There are certain words that make the question true. So words like some, few, many. But false words are those indefinite words or definite words. Never, all, every, only. If any part of the statement is false, the entire statement is false. And that gets some people tripped up. There might be 2 statements within one question. If part of it is false, then that means the whole thing, the whole question is not the correct answer. Multiple choice is what you're probably going to see most often, particularly healthcare students. Many of your exams are online, and multiple choice is the easiest format of testing. The main thing I want to point out here is before you read the answers, try to answer the question. And the reason for that is oftentimes once we start looking at all the possible answers in multiple choice, we start to self-doubt and we start to become confused. So we start to imagine, okay, it could be this one, it could be that one. If you attempt to answer the question first and one of the answer that you have is part of one of the possibles, go with that. Don't allow yourself to be self-doubting by looking at too many answers. You also want to make sure to do a process of elimination. Can you get rid of at least 2 of the answers and then just only focus on 2? Typically, multiple choice has 4 possible answers. When you keep looking at all 4 of them, it just continues to make the question a little bit more complex. So get rid of 2 and stick with 2 and then choose from those. When you are making educated guesses, you can look for, are there similarities in the answers? One of those is likely to be the correct one. You want to make sure you understand, though, in the similar answers, what is different that would make one of them the best answer. If you see words that include always, every, never, those are probably wrong. You want to cross out any answers that you know are incorrect and then don't go back to them. If you see answers where the numbers are high and low, those are usually incorrect. But again, this is when you have to use an educated guess. You absolutely do not know, so you're just guessing. The same is true if you see very detailed and long answers. Those tend to be correct. Short answer, there is not a lot that can be said for this one. So usually professors will give you the number of blanks that they want you to fill in. But you cannot assume that because a blank is really long, that the answer is really long. So, you know, these are a little bit more challenging to fill out. So knowing the information for a short answer, it's really hard to fudge on this one. However, if you see the word a before the blank, you know that the answer starts with a consonant, B, C, D. But if it starts with an before the blank, then you know it's going to start with a vowel, A, E, I, O, U. Essays, typically what happens is we look at the question and then we just start writing. One of the things I recommend is you do a brain dump. And by that, I mean, before you start actually trying to write complete sentences, just somewhere on the margin or corner of the page, write down everything you know about that particular topic. So you want to make sure you understand, what are you being asked to do? Are you being asked to describe? Are you being asked to explain, list, analyze? So you want to know what the professor is expecting by way of the conversation. And again, brain dump, write down some key words that you know about the topic. Just like you would with your essays for English, write a thesis statement. What is the main statement, main idea that you're going to lead with? That should be your first sentence. And you may even want to restate what the question is asking you. In this answer, I will discuss. In this answer, I am going to compare. This reminds you of what your task is. Details are important. And so again, when you are writing, the expectation is don't stay up at the surface. You got to go deep, go below. Use your critical thinking skills. Use your action steps. Break it down from very general to very specific. The more detail, the better your answer. And you do want to make sure you answer all parts of an essay. If the essay is asking you 3 or 4 questions, the expectation is that you address all 3 or 4 questions. Make sure you don't leave anything on the table. And then summarize it. The summary will help you determine if you covered everything you were asked to do. And check your spelling, your grammar, and your punctuation. And again, if you were doing a written, in the classroom exam, if you had to scratch something out, don't scratch. Just draw a line through it. Make it neat as much as you possibly can. And if the time permits, proofread, insert any words that might be missing, any misspellings, try to show that you made effort to correct those. After an exam, review the entire test. And if the professor has provided feedback, you want to make sure you read those comments. And that should be true of any assignment. If the professor has given you feedback on the assignment, don't just tuck it away. Make sure you read it, because all of that information might help you for the next exam, you know, for that class or for the next assignment. If you got answers wrong, this is the time to correct those. Make sure then that you understand. Sometimes professors will give you what we call a cumulative exam. That means that exam is going to cover all of the information you learned over the whole semester. So sometimes those questions from previous exams will come back at the end. So you do want to review your exams and correct the information. And after an exam, it's time to start preparing for the next exam. So studying is a process, and as I mentioned, process is just as important as the end result, as the actual project. So Nike said, just do it, and I encourage you to do just that. Make sure that you are doing the best you can with the information that you have. And always feel free to ask any questions or to meet with me to review your specific situation. So if you want to go in further detail about test taking for yourself, I'm happy to assist you with that. So I hope this was helpful. Please read chapter 6, and happy snow day. Talk to you all later. Bye.